Senate Chamber. Sound.
Okay, members, we are now in open session. Welcome to the 48th meeting of the Public Accounts Committee in this mandate. Can I advise members that the committee meeting will be recorded and broadcast through Parliament buildings and online. However, there could be a slight delay between moving between a private and public session, so please be patient with the system. Can I also advise if anyone will be joining us in the public gallery, they're welcome to use mobile devices as long as the devices are muted. Assembly Wi-Fi details can be accessed on the gallery rules, and it is not permitted to record or take photographs of the meeting. We have apologies from Colin Crawford, MLA, and Tom Buchanan, MLA. Any others? No? Okay. Members, can I refer you to the pack for a copy of the draft minutes of the meeting of the 26th of June at pages 7 to 13 of the meeting pack. If members are agreed, I'll sign the minutes. Agreed. Okay, members, as always, if members have any declarations of interest that are relevant to this meeting, can you declare them now? Dan?
Thanks, Chair. For the DOE, the same as through the rest of the report, APS to Education Minister and Board of Governors.
Okay. Board of Governors today as well, Chair.
Okay.
Board of Governors as well.
Board of Governors as well.
Yeah.
A lot of interest in boards of governors about it. Okay, thank you, members. Chairperson's business. Members, as raised last week and discussed slightly, the issue in relation to the judicial review outcome on the A5 has caused quite a lot of concern and annoyance, and really has come as a tremendous shock to people as to how this has happened. I'm sure all of you, as I am anyway, but I'm suppose in the direct line of it, we're receiving quite a bit of correspondence about how this happened, why it happened, and the impact of the judgment. So, given that we have covered this previously under major capital projects, the follow-up report, there was, if you like, an addendum document there that incorporated the A5 in it, and also given the commitment that this committee has made over the last year or so, that we would hold all departments to account rigorously for the decisions that they make, or when it comes to public money and how it ultimately affects public money. I think it would be beneficial to revisit this area when we return in September. There's a number of areas to consider. Obviously, first and foremost, the current estimate of the scheme is £1.7 billion, a substantial amount of public money. The scheme was originally scheduled for completion in 2018. The project is now expected, until the recent judgment, September 2028, and that was before the judgment determined that. So there's a 10-year delay as it is, and then further down the line now. There's been a number of obviously legal challenges and issues that have emerged. And further to that, there's been 3 public inquiries to date, the most recent held between May and June of 2023. There's been repeated delays as a result of the legal challenges, consultation shortcomings and environmental information gaps. And 4 of 30 recommendations from the 2020 interim inquiry report were rejected by the Department for Infrastructure. So 4 out of the 30 were rejected by DFI, including on scheme phasing and archaeology. And also, further to that, there's been 2 environmental statement addendums since 2016, most recently in March 2022, with an additional supplementary report in November 2022. So there's a wide range of issues. So there's a number of options available to this committee which I would appreciate a brief discussion and consideration of. First one is requesting an update briefing or memo from the Northern Ireland Audit Office on the A5 scheme, and then further to consider holding a standalone evidence session with DFI officials on the current status, risks and decision making around the A5. And we have a further option of reopening the capital projects inquiry to include the A5 as a case study in an ongoing oversight of the previous inquiry. So a number of things. I think when you look at that and what has happened and the potential huge cost to public money, public purse, and equally, I suppose, the reputational damage that has been done in terms of delivery of these large flagship projects, I would be proposing that we look at the feasibility of a standalone session. Now, we need to seek advice on that, but I think it's within the powers of the committee to do it. So that's a bit of an update. There's a lot in it, but this is a very, very serious issue, and I think in terms of good governance and accountability, we need to be looking at it. Colin?
Yep. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, no, this is a really, really important, a massively important project, arguably like the most important project in terms of servicing that entire area. And I do want to say at the outset, you know, our hearts and our thoughts are always with all of those people who lose and have lost their lives, and who we all fear could be the next victim, and that's a real concern. So I absolutely share the concern around that. As well as that, people in our part of the country are entitled to decent roads the same as every other part of the country. People in the west of Ireland and the west of the Bann are entitled. And this is not, you know, all singing, dancing motorway. This is a basic enough dual carriageway to service that road, that whole connection. I live 60 miles from Derry, 90 miles from Dublin, and I can be in the Helix in Dublin quicker from my home than I can be in University of Ulster in Magee. That's reality, and that's simply down to the lack of road infrastructure. There's been underinvestment for decades upon decades, and it cannot wait any longer, and it is a really fundamentally important project. I think all of our commitments need to be around this executive, this assembly, and indeed this committee, as to what we can now do to ensure the project goes forward, and goes forward in a way that is delivered. So I'm quite open to any of those suggestions around what might move the project forward. It's something I think that we all need to be putting our shoulder to the wheel on and doing what we can in our various roles.
And concur completely with everything you've said, particularly in sharing our thoughts with the families who are devastated by this. You know, the word that I've heard continually in the last week is that people feel re-traumatised when they travel on that road, and every setback re-traumatises those who have suffered, I suppose, the worst possible consequences, and that is the loss of human life as a result of the poor infrastructure that exists. And equally, I think, you know, people are entitled to get answers as to how this has happened. I think it does send a very solid, strong signal from this committee that we're not going to be accepting the shortcomings when the consequences of it are so devastating, not just in terms of human life, but also the financial cost. Diane? Yeah,
thank you, Chair. And I know that my colleagues, Tom Buchanan and Deborah Erskine, you know, speak strongly of this, and agree with the sentiments there, thinking about all the families. I don't know the road that well, but I'm very, very supportive of getting some progress on this road. In terms of the options that you outlined, you talked about getting a memo of update from the Audit Office. I would maybe consider, and you also mentioned about reopening the capital project study, can we ask them to do like a small standalone study on the A5 rather than just a memo of update? And I don't think that this should just be restricted to capital projects, because I think that this is, you know, coming on the back of capital projects. Yes, there's that element, there are all those things, but there are really specific issues with the A5. So to ask them to go and carry out a piece of work in terms of what happened with this in terms of capital projects, but also, you know, infrastructure, what does it mean for other infrastructure, the climate change, what is the way forward for it, and like, this is a flagship project coming through and with a commitment from the executive. Like there's a number of departments here that are quite impacted by it, and I know we haven't done this today in terms of this committee, but I know in previous PACs, you can ask for like a follow-up report, a small report just on a really, really specific thing, and I would propose something like that, and it almost like a small report mini inquiry, because as you say, you've asked them for a memo, but what all issues are there? I think it's more serious than a memo, and I wouldn't really want to just open the whole capital projects report, because we're struggling enough to get the responses on that, in terms of from the whole department, and I do think those issues remain, but I think that this one has a lot of just very, very specific issues, and that would be what I would ask could be considered in some shape or form.
Yeah, I think there's a layered approach to this, and I'll let Cathal and David in shortly. The updated briefing or memo is, I suppose, a loose way of asking the Audit Office to review the project in light of the recent judgment. How it ended up with the judgment determined as is, in other words, why there was shortcomings or what wasn't done or was processed not followed or whatever by officials. I think that's what we need to get to. In terms of the standalone evidence session that I also referenced with DFI officials on the current status, risks, decision making around the A5, I think is important from a complete and absolute accountability point of view. It also signals that we're keeping a very close eye on this. To be clear, the recent judgment could potentially have profound consequences for quite a lot of areas. But in the interim, given we've had signal from the Minister earlier this week of potential responses, action or appeal, I think that we need to swiftly move towards the nub of the problem in this regard. More widely, I think, Dan, I think you're right to say that what does this judgment mean for everything else? And I think that's a piece of work that the Audit Office should definitely consider doing. So I think there's about two approaches here. One is an interim consideration of where we are since the judgment, how that happened, how we move forward, and get reassurances from the department. And then more long term, what is the impact, given that judgment, that has now been tested in a court of law for all aspects, I suppose, of flagship projects, etc. And other projects, it could be as simple as house building in Northern Ireland. So I think that's probably the balance. Because if we go with the wider piece, we won't have it any time soon, I wouldn't think. But I think two layers to that might be a suggestion. Cathal?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and I don't disagree. I mean, I'm just trying to think how we deal with this properly, and I think you're right. First, let's have the auditor in, find the best way forward, see what's there, what's done already, where we're at, and also in line with that there, because, I mean, whether it's an inquiry, a short inquiry, or a review, whatever you like to call it, a focused piece of work is what we need. We then need legal advice as well in terms of there may be an appeal. Do you mean what grounds? And that's where we need to start from a committee point of view. Those 2 points are vitally important. We need to marry them up if we're going to do anything, because that could stop our piece of work if there's legal undertakings there and it's live. It may stop us. I'm not saying it will, but let's get the auditor in, have those conversations certainly the first week in.
Yep. And
also then if Diane and you've talked about the future consequences or any ramifications moving forward is going to happen. Yes, certainly, but let's not lose focus on what we're trying to do. We're trying to deal with A5 stuff, and I think we might be able to do it fairly quickly, but we need legal advice in terms of, because it could stop it all on us.
Yep.
You know, I mean, on those two pieces, and I think we can. And for the point, Sharon, you were saying about DFI, sorry, and I know through Deborah, because we know we've asked a number of questions from our committee of the department in relation to this matter. And I said the last day, let's tie that all in. There could be responses there by the time we get.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And let's go. I think.
And I'm also aware that members of the Assembly have submitted a substantial amount of questions to the Minister and the Department, asking all sorts of things that will come to light. In terms of the Executive, the Minister on Tuesday indicated her intention to appeal subject to the approval of the executive. I don't know when that will be, so I think it would be wholly appropriate, given the concerns that have been raised, that we set a course of action in place, and if a legal action via appeal does begin, then we can review it then. But I think it's important that we kind of signal we're looking at this. I'm talking about the proposal that's there is more or less an evidence session. We can bring in senior officials and say we were given assurances that all
100%. I understand you going. All I'm saying, let's tie it all off.
Yes, tie it off. We're going to request. So we'll notify Dorina of the discussion. Request options, and I suppose a review of where things are, and then ultimately how we proceed. But am I right in saying that members would be keen, in light of what has happened, depending obviously on what comes before us between times, that we would consider having or look at the feasibility of having a standalone evidence session with DFA officials on the current status, risks and decision making on the A5? I think it's a fair enough proposal, isn't it? Okay. We're all on one page, and I think David, and then Cheryl.
I think we're all completely on the same page, and I sort of expressed the same. What you said about the families and that, I think that's foremost into it. Not this, but the other part of this that we haven't looked at without the A5. We talk about regional balance, and we talk about the economy of region, but you can't do it without infrastructure. Right. So if the infrastructure isn't there, there's pointless having a policy here of having that regional balance. And so that's the key. That is absolutely key. So it's not just about a road, and it is about families, and I don't mean it, but it is about families and making life safer for local residents. But it's actually about creating more opportunities for people in the west and that whole northwest region, connecting to Dublin and Belfast. That's
if I may, like, how do you transform health without having a decent road?
You can't.
Like, it's fundamental to everything.
Infrastructure is absolutely fundamental to everything that's delivered right across, and that's key. I suppose I was going to say, you're just going. The focus is to be on what we do is to get an answer quickly, rather than create another process that would delay. We need something really fast. I'm open to whatever that looks like, or whether that's a two-prong, but with something that's very focused, very direct, and doesn't harm in any way, but actually helps to give delivery and brings answers quickly and move it forward, because this needs to be pushed forward. So happy to support.
I agree.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, on a similar vein, it's obviously such an important issue, and we're kind of sitting here now going, absolute disaster, to be quite frank about it. Having a look at some of the questions, how is Northern Ireland moving forward going to deal with all these types of legal challenges? And I think it's kind of getting down to the nitty gritty, as Diane says. This is the A5. Agree, we need to look at this now. But it's that wider ramifications of what has happened, that will affect absolutely everything here in Northern Ireland. And it kind of goes back to the nub of the issue when we were talking about public consultation, meaningful consultation. Why are we doing that at the right time, to the right quality, to the right extent, so then we save money later down the line? Because again, there's a massive cost to this as well. So totally agree. I think we need something right now that we can assist with and actually drive change. But I do think there's a huge potential ramifications longer down the line that we need to be ready for and have recommendations and feed into in a positive way.
Just as a glimpse of how messy this is, my understanding is that as of Friday, the orders to quash vesting orders became live, which means that all of the affected land owners will have lands returned to them, or the process has begun. That means that all of the work that has received significant investment, with piping, rewiring, electrical poles been moved, fencing been put in place, roads being diverted in large parts of my constituency, is all going to be undone. So that's where we will be at. But it remains a flagship project, which means that in a number of months, all of it will be redone. So not only
Chair, we don't know that.
Is there, that's where it sits today?
No, Hunter, but we certainly don't know that. I mean, to be fair, we don't know.
The quashing orders became live on Friday.
No, I know, and there's a process.
Yes, but I'm saying, the point I'm making is, this has the potential to cause further harm to everybody concerned, because you're undoing a process to redo a process at a cost both ways. You know, we've talked a lot about the Climate Act this week. There's emissions to that in terms of undoing the work, redoing the work. There's a whole load of problems here as a result of this judgment. But I think largely, without getting into the detail of it, I think we're all on the same page that it's a regrettable situation. We're keen to see it remedied in the interest of obviously preserving human life, and equally the economic arguments that can be and should be made, as well as safety. And I think the role of there's certainly, I think we're agreed that there's a role for this committee in seeking out some of the answers in relation to the process. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. Yeah,
so in terms of agreed actions, we'll seek an update from the Controlling Auditor General and the Northern Audit Office in relation to where things are, if they would consider this, and I think that'll be okay. And then once we have that, we'll consider the options available, which may reflect what we've already discussed. And at that point, I think, or at this point, I think it's that we could potentially share those options and see how feasible they are with the Controlling Auditor General. And also we'll add to that, Dan, your piece around what are the wider ramifications in relation to development, construction, etc. You know, for instance, could that judgment ultimately affect the building of a hospital? You know, so it's just looking at that wider stuff. So thank you, members. Is there anything you want to add to that, or are you happy with?
Happy enough.
Yeah, Lucia.
Yeah, just on a point of clarification, I understand the process and the stages. I think it would be best to get that update, that advice from the CNAG before I seek legal advice.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
You'll know the process. We're happy with it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And I think, members, is it okay that if this becomes available immediately over the next few weeks, that we're okay to receive that over the summer?
100%.
Is that okay? Yeah, okay. So we'll not wait till September, just go ahead and move the thing on. Okay, thank you, and I appreciate that. And I know members of the families will appreciate us taking this extremely seriously, which I know everyone is, and working together to remedy the very real challenge that has been presented to us.
And Chair, if I may just put on the record, Liz Kimmins as Minister's commitment to do everything that she can, and I see our role as being in support of. I think, as I say, all of us need to put our shoulder to that wheel.
I think it's fair to put on the record, I don't think our struggle in this project is a lack of political will or commitment. I think that's very well got and very well noted. So I don't see that as an issue, nor have I actually. I think the executive have been quite strong in their commitment to the project. So I don't think that's in question. But a piece of the matters arising, members. You'll recall that just before our meeting last week, we received a copy of a letter from Ronnie Armour, the interim accounting officer for the Department of Education, responding to a number of points made following the recent evidence session in respect of maintaining the school's estate. A copy of the letter is at pages 17 to 40 of the meeting pack. A further supplementary letter can be found at pages 3 to 4 of the tabled papers. Members, any views in relation to the correspondence from Ronnie Armour? Are members content to note the correspondence?
Read, Chair.
Yeah, it's very brief anyway. So. Okay, members, our next item is a correspondence, at pages 42 to 45 of the meeting pack, where a letter from the Audit Committee providing members with the terms of reference for the review of the arrangements in relation to the Controller and Auditor General salary. Members, I declare an interest. I'm a previous chair of the Audit Committee and overseen the former review under the previous Comptroller and Auditor General. We dealt with this issue then and resolved it. I see that it has reappeared. I have a number of things that we'll suggest, but for Diane.
Claire, I sit on the audit committee as well.
Yeah. Okay, Dan. You maybe would, if allowed, shed a wee bit of light on this. So I think, given the correspondence we've received, which is really just to note, I think it's appropriate maybe to request a timescale and the date for completion of the process. Is that appropriate? Do you know how long that will be? No.
It's restricted, or?
Okay, that's okay. Fair enough. Yeah. So, as members agreed to seek that information, and I suppose just add a note to it that it would be appreciated if it could be done swiftly in terms of the process. I mean, okay, members content with that action? Okay, members have also been advised by the audit committee that they'll be seeking views on the Northern Ireland Audit Office budget in the autumn, and I'm going to ask Lucia to briefly brief us on that. Thank you.
Yes, I've been liaising with the clerk to the audit committee in terms of the timescale for this. So verbally, I've been made aware that the timescale has actually changed to accommodate committee sitting. So just sort of very broadly, the audit committee will be receiving papers and then forwarding them on to the PAC at the beginning of September, and that in terms of the timescale for this committee, the audit committee, they'll be taking evidence on the 17th of September, haven't received the relevant papers, and requesting that PAC consider their views on the budget at the meeting of the 18th of September, and then the final position would then be agreed by the audit committee on the 24th of September. The timescale is very tight. That's outside, the respective committee's control, but it has sort of improved a bit from where it was, and that is to allow the process to happen and for PAC to be able to submit their views. So it will be tight, but that's where we stand at the minute. But I only have this verbally, so when I have something more, I can update you as necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, members, further to that, pages 6 to 13 of the Tool Pack, there's a memo from the Communities Committee providing a copy of a memo shared with its members which collated responses from local councils on their anti-poverty actions and strategies. Members content to note? Okay, at item 7 is the Memorandum of Reply, the update on reports on public procurement in Northern Ireland and major capital projects follow-up. Members can refer you to the update provided at pages 47 to 54 of the meeting pack. And members, the update provided has addressed questions arising from the MOR provided in February 2012, which was reviewed on the 8th of May 2025. Members, any views on the update? Yes, okay, Lucia.
Yeah, it was just following on from the discussions last week in relation to the MOR process. Having sort of checked back on timescales, and then when the committee actually published the report, the normal timescales are eight weeks as per the guidance. However, having liaised with the TOA office, it's, I have been advised before that sometimes it'll take longer, because of the cross-cutting nature, and in relation to this MOR, there's the further complications with it, with the ISNI committee, Nick's board and the executive. But just to sort of reassure you, I am keeping in close contact with the TOA's office on this, And again, just so that you're aware, just in terms of the process, immediately after the PAC report is published, the TOI's office, they immediately write to the departments involved, and they do set out a clear timescale. So I think it was just important to sort of, give a bit of context around that 8-week deadline. And also, I'll be in contact with Julie over the summer just to keep on top of where things are in terms of progressing the MOR.
Okay, members will, if members have any comments, we'll take them now. And I'm just looking through the updates of the memorandum reply on public procurement. They've met very little of the recommendations within the time frame requested, which is disappointing. Even recommendation 1, 9 weeks after the target date. Recommendation 2 is on schedule, so that's okay. Recommendation 3 will not be delivered before March 26, when the date was ended December 25. Again, recommendation 7, the date was 30th of September. The recommendation on the schedule will be delivered before the end of July, so they're ahead on that one. And then schedules is 30. Yes, there's a couple that they're ahead on, but there's a couple that they're behind on as well. Members, also the letter and reply doesn't really give a sufficient explanation as to why. Yeah. Okay. So, members, any?
Yeah, go on down. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
That's right.
I agree with you in terms of the recommendations. There's a lot of grids and a lot of words, but they're not really saying an awful lot. But my comments more around the
That is the best statement.
fair comment. No, it's just on the letter. So where Neil Gibson is saying that basically we can't have this until there is executive approval of ISNI, but we don't have any indication of when that might be. Should we be seeking an estimate of when that will be?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Members okay to seek that update?
Yeah.
Okay.
On another point, Chair, and I don't know whether it's through TOA, Lucia, I mean, so, some of these problems lie in, and we've experienced it before, in departments coming back. Because obviously the DOF is collating all this stuff. So I don't know where we can seek, and, other than the time frames are given to respond, I mean, what else can we do? You know what I mean? If DOF's the collator of all the information and they're relying people to come back, I'm not defending them. I'm only saying that's part of the problem as well. I'm not, in this case I agree with Diane's proposal, but in the future what can we do, or can we take advice on that, or how can we? There's not really much we can do. The process is there, isn't that right? Like, so
There's a clear process there, and TOA and Julie from the TOA office, they set very stringent deadlines to keep the process moving, and they do their best to keep within the 8 weeks, but where it does get more complex is when the recommendations are cross-cutting. So just with this particular one, we're now, well, it was 12, it would be 13 weeks now. So I think maybe to correct that, because last week, we were discussing it as 16 weeks.
Can we just note it then, Chair, for the next time when we go into that, even when Doreen is in, let's have that conversation, okay? Because, I mean, if that's the case, we do a lot of inquiries.
Yeah.
We're looking cross-departmental, responses. Holds it back a bit. I'm not blaming anybody. It's just, let's have a chat about that, okay? The next time, right? Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Everyone okay? Okay, thank you. Members, last week the committee agreed to write to the Department of Finance regarding the delay to the memorandum of reply on the major capital projects follow-up report. Responses issued from the department, which is included at page 15 to 23 of the table papers. What do you say?
you're doing major capital projects.
Oh, sir, my head's gone here. I'm thinking of my dinner now at this point.
You're on to
I was wondering that.
on public procurement. We've done public procurement first. So we've
You've
done,
confused me.
Similar.
We've really done that.
we've done that one as well.
No, we didn't. We're going to that one now. We discussed that.
Right, Chair, okay.
Okay, we've got that now.
Right, okay, we're just going to wind it back.
Sorry, it's not me now at all, actually, so it's okay.
The audit of the top table.
So at page 15 to 23 of your table pack, Lucia, now you could brief the committee on the MOR process.
Oh, well, I've already done that.
Yeah,
so
no.
Thanks, Chair. I'm open to documents.
Members, we've covered all this
Thank
anyway.
God. Are you trying to make ages out of the cards? Or is
I
it
don't
cards
know.
out of the
What,
Chair?
it's somewhere.
What you ordered?
Okay, members, so you can tend to note the correspondence and visit the memorandum reply in September.
Great, Chair.
Right. Okay. Draft forward work programme. Members, the draft forward work programme for September to December is at pages 56 to 57 of the meeting.
School's out for summer. Yeah.
Everyone okay with that forward work programme? Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other business?
Alien Grow LRB. And you.
Okay, members, well, this is our last meeting. We reconvene on the 18th of September, which seems like a lifetime away, at 2 o'clock in this chamber. Just again to put on record, on behalf of the committee, our appreciation to the clerk and the committee team, to the audit office, led by Dorina and her team, and also to yourselves for the work that we've been doing very well, very effectively together, and I look forward to what lies ahead in September. So thank you, members. The meeting is now adjourned. Gurmila Miyogat.
Senate Chamber. Sound. Senate Chamber. Sound.